we're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. And reading the headline of this article is hilarious. El Salvador harvesting volcano power to mine Bitcoin, and that's the reason why it's going up. Guys, you cannot make this stuff up. We know the only reason why stocks and cryptos are up now is because of the Fed. And we can see it in the repo market. It is amazing. And then also, can Bitcoin hit 100,000? We know that is possible, but only if the Fed was to keep their foot on the gas, and we know that's not going to happen. We know they have to pull back, and we know the digital yuan is active the first quarter of next year. Plus, we have global regulation of ISO next year. A big crisis is about to happen. And how does the Crypto Teacher know? Because we know the New World Order goes off problem, reaction, and solution. They printed all this money to build the fourth industrial revolution for the robots, algorithms, and drones to get rid of humanity out of the economy, so therefore they have total control. Remember what blockchain does. It gives them surveillance. They will have the all-seeing eye. They'll be able to control what, when, and where, and how you buy it and what you say. Because we know when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
El Salvador has become the country to watch in the evolution of Bitcoin, first making it legal tender, now taking extraordinary steps to address mining's energy usage problem. CNBC.com tech reporter Mackenzie Sigalos is here with more on what we know about their latest efforts, Mackenzie, involving volcanoes.
So for the first time, Kelly, El Salvador is officially using power harnessed from a volcano to mine for Bitcoin. President Bukele said a couple hours ago that the country has so far earned $269 worth of Bitcoin. Now, details are sparse, but here's what we do know. Earlier this week, the president posted a video showing these sweeping landscape aerials of an energy factory in the thick of a forest bordering a volcano. We saw a shipping container full of Bitcoin mining rigs, as well as technicians installing and plugging in ASIC miners. We also know the government is working hand in hand with state-owned geothermal electric company Lajeo, which is already running these power plants across the country. So they're not starting from zero when it comes to infrastructure. Kelly?
It seems like they're trying to address the energy usage that with the energy crunch happening globally right now, is one of the major things that critics often talk about when it comes to using Bitcoin, period, right?
Right, it absolutely is. And if this works, it could be a huge plus for the larger debate around Bitcoin's carbon footprint. What we're talking about here is geothermal energy. It's renewable, it's clean, and in some places, it might be making use of a previously untapped resource, which makes the case that Bitcoin can act as an accelerant to renewable energy development.
Yes, if we can get more volcanoes online, seems like that would be a good thing for everybody. Mackenzie
Mears is the Chief Strategy Officer for CoinShares, co-chair of the World Economic Forum's Cryptocurrency Council. Meltem, it's always great to see you. How do we get to 100K
It's great to
by
be here.
year-end?
I'm your resident Bitcoin bull.
How do we get to 100K by year-end? What's the backdrop?
Yeah, let's just look at the landscape. As I always like to say, you got to bring the receipts. So here are the receipts. If we look at what's happened over the last 6 months since Bitcoin hit its previous high of around 65,000, we saw a lot of risks coming off the table. There was a lot of leverage in the system that got flushed out. Right now, we're hearing rumblings around a potential Bitcoin ETF approval. That would be a cash-settled contract-based ETF. But still, there's a lot of buy the rumors, sell the news behavior in crypto. That's a big catalyst we're looking at in Q4. There's also not a lot of open longs in the Bitcoin position anymore. So we're seeing a lot more firms taking on more bullish long calls. In fact, there are a number of 6-figure long-dated option calls that are seeing some action going into the end of Q4 and early Q1. And I think most importantly, honestly, is there's a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines, and a lot of investors are now seriously contemplating an allocation to Bitcoin in their portfolios. And there are now so many different avenues through which to do that, whether it's through a publicly listed investment vehicle or through assets themselves on platforms like Coinbase or Robinhood or Square. There's just an absolute plethora of options that are opening up the channel for retail and professional investors to get exposure to the asset class.
Hi, good evening. Thanks so much for joining. Quick question about some of the regulatory overhang in some of the space, particularly what we've seen out of China. Does that change your outlook at all, or can you kind of make investors a bit more comfortable in terms of how they would kind of abate those risks?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think China has banned Bitcoin about 16 times since 2013, and each time the ban is slightly different. This time, obviously, China is very concerned about minimizing capital outflows in context of what's happening in markets in China. And so I think in the macro scheme, we've seen a shift away from China and Bitcoin markets. Since as early as March, we've seen a shift in trading activity favoring US and Western Europe trading hours, as opposed to historically the most of Bitcoin trading would happen during Asia trading hours. That's shifted. Even the trade pairs themselves, it used to be that the CNY Bitcoin trade pair or the Tether USD dollar sort of trade pair with Bitcoin were the most popular. That's shifted. We now see a lot more straight dollar Bitcoin trade pair activity, which is a sign that more of the participation in the formal Bitcoin market is happening through regulated existing financial institutions that are accessing the asset class through regulated financial institutions here in the US as well as in Europe. So again, generally, as we look at the market, really the majority of the impact on the China side has been on the mining side. A lot of that activity has shifted to Iceland, to Kazakhstan, the US as well. But if we look at trading activity in market microstructure, that activity had already shifted more to Europe and the US. And so from a market impact perspective and from a trading perspective, the China narrative hasn't really had much of an impact on volumes there.
One of the tentpoles, Meltem, to your $100,000 case is that inflation is not transitory, and that's something that we talk about a lot on this show. At the same time, what if the Fed is right and inflation is transitory? How much of a tentpole is that to your bullish thesis?
Look, I think at the end of the day, volatility is present in all markets, not just in Bitcoin. I think one of the biggest stories for Bitcoin over the last 18 months is a relative volatility story. One of the biggest sort of challenges that many investors had with Bitcoin historically as an investment was its perceived volatility. But as we saw in markets over the last 18 months, right, volatility in all asset classes, including things like treasuries, which have historically not been that volatile, we've seen a lot of volatility. So I think from a relative perspective, investors are getting much more comfortable with the volatility of Bitcoin. And again, as they look at opportunities across the investing landscape, across the board, there's a lot of inflation in asset prices themselves. It's not just equities and tech equities in particular, but it's also real estate, it's commodities, it's all sorts of assets that are seeing rapid price inflation and a tremendous amount of capital inflows. And again, I think cryptocurrencies are no longer a sideshow there. But cryptocurrencies are the main show.
Just quickly, Meltem, I mean, who's to say that Bitcoin isn't inflated right here? I mean, if there is no alternative and there's money and people want to allocate to something that's going to give them some yield, then why isn't the move that we've already seen in Bitcoin simply an inflation of this asset class?
I think Bitcoin's number one characteristic that we often don't appreciate is the fact that Bitcoin has the scarcity property that many other assets don't. And Bitcoin's scarcity, especially in what we're expecting to see in Q4 when it comes to demand for Bitcoin, has a dramatic impact on price, especially when we see, $50 billion of Bitcoin around the world in Bitcoin-based investment products. That's supply that's taken off the market, and that can have, really dramatic impacts. We've seen $10,000 a day candles sometimes in Bitcoin environments like these. So again, I think we can't understate how important the supply constraint on Bitcoin is in terms of its ability to have dramatic price movements. So
the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York. COVID 33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.